Well, this is an absolute honor. Look who's with us, the greatest of all time. It is, of course, Mr. Georges St-Pierre. Congratulations, Georges, on being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. It must have put a massive smile on your face when you found out that news.
Yeah, I was actually watching a fight, and Dana White called me. I didn't know why he was calling me. I thought he was calling me to offer me a fight. It was a great surprise. What a great honor! I was thrilled.
Well, part of this conversation, we're obviously going to look back at some of the highs, the very few lows that you've had, but I think they're important to talk about as part of the journey. And of course, where it all began. And that's where I want to start, really, because there'll be a lot of people watching this who are fans of yours, especially younger fans, who have probably gone through that same process. You know, they've felt adversity at school, being bullied, and being inspired by their parents to take up a mixed martial art to help defend themselves. But not everybody then goes on to become an elite mixed martial artist and one of the best fighters of all time. So what I want to start with is the mentality. When does the mentality change for you when you're going to the dojo, you're doing karate, you're using it for self-defense? When did the mentality change that, hang on, I'm actually quite good at this and I'm going to go on to do this for my career?
I wasn't really good at, there's nowhere in my life I felt comfortable and I felt that I was treated good, and I felt like I was at the even when I was at school, you know, I was focusing more on getting, you know, dealing with the bully. When I was at home, things were not that great as well. And I had problems everywhere. The only place where I felt it was much a good motivation for me was when I was training karate in the dojo. So I start to that's how it all started. You know, that was the only place where I could be myself. I didn't have to worry about anything else. You know, I felt great. And that's when everything started. I decided to put a lot of my focus and energy in that when I was a teenager, I would say.
And at what point then do you think that you could turn that into a career? Is it when you start to win competitions?
Well, the first time I realized that fighting, that's what I wanted to do, because UFC did not exist in the beginning. Yeah. A friend of mine rent a videotape, a VCR, and it was the UFC 1. And I remember I watched it, and I saw Royce Gracie winning the first UFC. I immediately was inspired by that. Seeing a smaller guy who looked very good beating up bigger, most intimidating guy, it made me remember when I was bullied in school, you know, except I never had a chance to take my revenge. You know, the bad guy, the bully, got the edge and were the winner at the end. But seeing Royce Gracie winning the tournament,
yeah,
while he was probably the smallest competitor and the less intimidated, he really inspired me, because he did something I never did in my life. And right away, I was like, wow, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I always wanted to do, you know? Not that I seek revenge, but he did something I was never almost able to do, you know, and it was for me incredible. And right away, I was doing karate at the time, and I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. And I right away had, it's like something happened, and right away I knew that this sport would one day be big.
Is there a particular mixed martial art discipline that you prefer? Because when you hit the scene in 2004, when you made that UFC debut, you were the 2.0 fighter. There was a lot of guys that were kickboxers, jiu-jitsu specialists, and they were fighting each other, but you were incredibly rounded from the get-go. Is there a particular discipline that you prefer?
I believe the art of fighting, of self-defense, you call it whatever you want, martial art. I believe at first, when it was invented, I wasn't there, of course, but I believe it was all mixed together. And through times, we separated and made it more specialized. So my favorite part of it is when everything is all integrated together. And that's when I'm at my best. Because I'm not the best striker, I'm not the best grappler, but I'm very good at mixing both. And I'm very good in the transition. You know, even if I fight a guy who's better than me in every discipline, when I mix them all together, I'm very good because I can weaponize pace and put a pace in the transition that people can't keep up with me. That's how I won my fight.
Fascinating. Let's go back to 2004 then, shall we? January 31st. That's where we're going. What do you remember of that UFC debut?
Oh, I was super nervous, and it was a dream come true for me. I was fighting a guy that he was like the new superstar, the new face of UFC. He was a young guy, and he had an incredible record, and I felt I was there just to make him look good, kind of. So at the time, I wanted to break the plan of the organization, and even though I was the underdog, I really planned to win that fight, you know, and I didn't know much about Karo Parisian. I went there and I was known to be more maybe a striker at the time, but I decided to take him down and to beat him in his own game, to surprise him.
A lot of people, if they can't remember the build up to that, you're right, because he was being built. He was, if you're going to word it in a way, the A side, I suppose, they were building him up, weren't they? More so you coming in to obviously face him. What is that like? That being built in that way for a fight on your UFC debut?
It's okay because he had incredible highlights, you know, and I like to be the underdog as well. It doesn't matter to me, you know. It's just that it's normal. He had the incredible highlights. He had a lot more experience than I did. I was just a guy that never fought out of his country before. You know, it was my first international fight. I beat Pete Spratt at the time to have my chance in UFC. And Pete Spratt, if you remember, it gave me a big leverage, big exposure, because Pete Spratt at the time knocked out Robbie Lawler with leg kick. So Pete Spratt his stock was very high, and when I beat him in Quebec, in Victoriaville in Quebec, in Canada, then that was my ticket for the UFC. But that's the only win I had. All the other win that I had was against guys that they were not in UFC. So it's normal that I was the underdog.
Well, you have one more fight before we get to the Matt Hughes fight, okay? And I think that this is an interesting part to start for our viewers to obviously start understanding the psychology as your St-Pierre, because there's a lot of guys out there that are okay when they're winning, but the champions, the great champions, they deal with defeat in a certain way and use that in order to push their career on. So I know that hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I want you to go back to that moment, the moment of losing to Matt, your first defeat in mixed martial arts. How does that feel in the immediate aftermath, and how did you use that then going forward?
Well, I took that fight when I fought Matt Hughes. He was already a legend. To me, like in my mind, he was almost invincible, and I couldn't believe it. I was going into that fight, I would say, mostly to not lose instead of going there to win. And I remember in the stare down, I couldn't even look at him in the eyes. So when he beat me, he did a beautiful setup. I tried to get him with a kimura. He spun around. He got me with an armbar, a Juji Gatami armbar. I've learned the importance of the mental game. You know, sometimes when the lights are on, some guys, even though they're very good, they can't perform as well because they're blocked mentally. And And I think maybe that's what happened to me. I've learned that if I fight someone, I need to go all in, and I need to believe in my chance. And everybody is human, and no matter how good the guy is that you're fighting, you shouldn't put him on the pedestal. You should just fight him like another guy, and do your best. And that's one of the lessons that I've learned when I lost to Matt Hughes.
You had to earn your way as well back to that title shot. Took 2 years, but you came across some sensational fighters in that period of time, and you took no time whatsoever in getting back to it. People like Frank Trigg and, of course, BJ Penn. I've seen you talk on record in the past about that particular fight, the BJ Penn fight, being your most difficult of your career. Do you stand by that?
Yeah. My first fight with BJ Penn was probably the fight that I got the most injured. It was most of the fight that I had, as bad as it looks sometimes, because my face mark very easy. I have a baby skin, so. But that fight, really, I was very sore. Like I couldn't walk properly because I kicked his leg and he blocked it with his knee. I was really, really messed up. So this fight was the fight that I would say I was the most. I endured the most pain.
And then obviously 2 years after the first fight, you get the second one with Matt, and you realise your dream of becoming the UFC champion. You did it in sensational fashion as well. You didn't mess about, did you? You had a proper good goer in that fight. Talk me through the build up to it, because the nerves must have been through the roof. The pressure that was on you on that particular night to perform was at an all-time high.
Yeah, I'm very good with rematch. I have a very good learning speed. I cannot very well, and the most time I spend with a certain problem, the higher the odds are for me to succeed. Like, I know it's the same for everybody, but in particular for me, if I spend time in the same octagon with another fighter, my learning ability are very good to make myself becoming the perfect nemesis for his style. So, and also on the mental side, I was ready for war. I was ready. I was going there to win that time and a half. And you never fight the same fighter twice. To give to Matt Hughes credit, you never fight the same fighter twice. So, I mean, I was a younger guy. He was maybe a little bit older going down. I was coming up, So who knows? Maybe if I would have fought him in his prime, maybe he would have beat me. Maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows? So every fight that we have, every performance are different. And every fight leaves a scar in a way that it could be a bad scar or a good scar. When you succeed, it could be good. When you fail, it could be bad or good, depending how you take it. There's a saying, I don't remember who said it, but they say there is nothing that can make you weaker than victory. And it's true. And that's what happened when I beat Matt Hughes. My loss made me much stronger because I've learned from it. But my victory weakened me. So now I was the new face of the UFC in a way. I was young. I was the guy that just beat Matt Hughes, and everybody saw in me like an aura of invincibility, and I started to believe in it. Then my first title defense was against Matt Serra.
Yeah.
A guy that I believe the Vegas odds were like 11-1 for that fight. Nobody gave him a chance, including myself. But you know what? I went there, and Matt Serra clipped me with a very good punch in the beginning, rocked me. I was never able to come back into the fight and finish me with punch. And I've learned a big lesson again. It's not always the best fighter that wins the fight. It's the fighter that fight the best the night of the fight. It's like in football, it's not the best team that win the game. Mm-hmm. Even though on paper one team is better, the night of the game, the team that will play is the team that played the best. Fighting is no different. And that night, I lost to Matt Serra because he fought a much better fight than I did.
What is that like, that moment, from being the highest of highs, the champion, the guy that's just beaten Matt Hughes, to then crashing down against an 11-1 underdog? You know, everybody wants to be your friend when you're the champion, George. What's it like at that moment?
It was the most humiliated thing in my career. I felt I let down everybody. Even though it was it turns out to be a good positive experience because it made me who I am today, made me a much better fighter and martial artist. I believe some experience can be learned, but some experience can be taught. And, you know, it's a saying, it's like, yeah, the best fighter don't always win, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you're a young guy like I was, you would be like, yeah. I was not cocky, but I was like very confident, so to speak. You know? And I started to believe in myself a little bit too much. I was not scared enough. When I fought Matt Serra, that was the only fight I would say I wasn't scared before. I slept quite good the night before the fights, which never happened in my entire career. So I've learned a good lesson from that fight. And who knows what would have happened if I would not have lost that fight. Maybe I would have derailed on the road. Who knows?
Would you say that that's the most important fight of your career? Even though it's a loss, is it the most important one?
Well, I think as a human being, yes. As an, it could be as an athlete, but as a human being, to mold the character, the mental side of the game, yes. Because the fact that I was able to rebound from that, it took me a lot. It was very hard. After that, I started to have big problems of confidence. Because the young, undefeated, like unbeatable young guy that I was did not exist anymore. And I needed to prove it to myself, not only to everybody, but to myself, that now I just found out I'm human. I never been TKO'd before. And I had to climb back. Like, I felt like I climbed back the Everest once. I went down all the way and I had to do it again. So it was a tough challenge.
Did you make any changes at that point to the way that you prepared for fights and what have you? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was a year between you getting that fight and the rematch with him. You had 2 fights in between. You fought Koscheck and Hughes again, if I'm not mistaken. So did you change anything in that period before you got the Serra fight in Montreal?
Yeah, I changed the way I was thinking. When I fought Matt Hughes, I believe one of the biggest mistakes I did, I put Matt Hughes on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Made him too good. And then I lost. When I fought Matt Serra, I put him too low. And then I lost. And there's a famous line from he's a judo, one of the best judo competitor in the world. He says, your opponent is never as good as you think he is, but he's never as bad as you think he is either. Don't make him better than he is. Don't make him worse. Put him around that frame.
Yeah.
In your frame. It's a threat, but it's a threat that if you work hard and you put times in, you'll be able to deal with. And that's how I see every challenge.
How much pressure did you feel going into the rematch with Serra?
Oh, it was a lot of pressure because my ego, I didn't want to be beat a second time by the guy who beat me. But I was very well prepared. And when I say prepared, I'm not only talking physically, I'm talking about mentally. And it was in Montreal. It was one of the most memorable fight of my career. It was very special.
And then off the back of that, we go on this amazing run, the record-breaking run. 9 title defenses. I mean, in modern day mixed martial arts now, for someone to do that, listen, it would transcend, it would be on mainstream news, people would be going crazy for it. And it was obviously in Canada. Here in the UK, it filtered. People knew obviously who you were, but it was filtering in. Talk to me about that achievement, to defend your belt 9 times. And we're not talking about tin cans. We're talking about defending that belt against some of the very best welterweights that have ever walked the face of the earth.
Yeah, well, I every fight I see it as a single problem. I never think further than my fight. For me, when I fight someone, every fight is unique and every fight demands 100% of my attention. So I fight like there is no tomorrow. Like tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. I might die or I might, but that's the end of my life. It's the fight. And then after, once the fight is done, I turn the page. Now I can live and see what's coming next,
Yeah.
So when you see it like that, after I'm done, my achievement, it's great for me and it feels good. But during the process, I would never thought that way. I was seeing every fight like the biggest threat of my career. And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to have a lot of success.
What was it like being you during that time? Because you climbed the mountain once, you crashed down, and now we're talking genuine superstar stuff now. You probably couldn't walk down the street in your hometown. Anywhere you went in Canada, people were all over you.
Actually, it's not that bad in the part of Canada where I am. It's not that bad. There's some places in the country that are worse than other, but the place where I live, people are used to see me, so I don't think it's that bad. And culturally, they're not invading my personal space. So of course, there's some people that comes, but it's always good and genuine, and it's always fun.
But during a time of when social media is starting to boom and the sport's being covered more and more and more, you're the face of the sport. You're the guy. You're right at the top of the tree. There's a lot of pressure that comes along with that during that run of 9 world title defenses.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. It's a very stressful life. It's stressful because I made it stressful. I mean, you're the boss of your own environment. You know what's happening between your neurons.
Mm-hmm.
You're your own boss. But I knew before, and I know now that that's how I perform at my best, when I feel like I'm on the edge. Like I can't back up, and so I willingly put the pressure on myself because I know that's how I perform the best.
Retirement. When did you make that decision? Did you make it before Hendricks? Did you make it even a few fights before that? Where were you at? Or was it a spur of the moment, end of the fight? I've had enough.
I knew I wanted to do it after Nick Diaz, Johnny Hendricks, but every time I finished a fight, it was another guy coming that seems better than the previous one. And it was a big problem with the performance enhancing drug in the sport. And I felt I was like fighting not only my opponent, but I was fighting the entire organization, and nobody says anything. And if I would have to redo my career again, I would have taken my break after Nick Diaz.
Wow.
Because I made a deal with Johnny Hendricks, I remember, to sign for VADA. He accepted at first, but then when it was time to sign it, he refused, and I got very angry, and I found out that the UFC told him to not do it as well. If I would have do this thing again, I would have taken my belt, drop it on the conference that was before the fight, and say, you know what, you don't want to disrespect the part the part of the bargain that we made, I'm out. Ciao. And if I would have done that, I would have probably came back much earlier. Because it was not a retirement. It was, for me, in the back of my head, I knew I was coming back after. It was just a break. But I needed it in order to keep my sanity.
Yeah. I mean, you've just mentioned performance-enhancing drugs there, and you've been, obviously, rightfully, an advocate banging the drum of a clean sport. And when the UFC started, it wasn't necessarily a clean sport. So what do you make now of your time out of the sport, that 4-year period before Bisping? What did you make of the steps forward with USADA and various things like that?
Oh, I was very happy the UFC took the initiative of, they did that knowing that at first they would be hurt because a lot of their superstar would fall. And I knew it. Most people knew it, but the general public have no idea.
Mm.
And the general public, they're the one that, the fans, they're the one that pay the bills. I always believed that it would be hard in the beginning because a lot of their champion would fall, but on the long run, it would be good because it will elevate the UFC. And I never did that to hurt the UFC. I always did that to elevate the sport of mixed martial art, especially in fighting. You can say I play baseball, play football. So if you take performance enhancing, yeah, it sucks because you lose, but if you fight, you don't play fighting.
Yeah.
You can die. You can die out there. And if you don't die, maybe the damage caused by the fight might make you die later on. So it's a very serious business. You can't tolerate any performance enhancing drugs in this game.
Have we got the punishments right yet, George? Or what's your view on it? I'll give you mine, and then you go for it. I think 1 strike, a lengthy ban, 2 strikes, permanent exclusion. I don't know where you're at. What do you think?
I agree 100%. 100%. And it's still quite, I would say, easy to cheat. I mean, the system is not perfect, but it's much better than it was.
Mm.
But there's a lot of ways to cheat. A lot of, you can find ways, and it's to be caught in the beginning before USADA came. To be caught by a performance enhancing drug, you need completely to be incompetent in what you're doing. I mean, it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
And now that they're there, it's harder for people to cheat, but there's still people that cheat 100%. But the good news is USADA get better because the technology and the technique for cheating is always ahead of the curve than the one that are testing it. But the good news is USADA are getting better as well, so they're gonna catch up with them.
You've traveled the world and gone to various gyms all over the world. You must have been at some point in your career in an environment where somebody maybe has made an offer to you about drugs and performance-enhancing drugs, because I know that thing goes on, and it takes a strong-willed, strong-mind human being to say, no, man, that's not what I'm about.
And I had trained with many people that are using performance-enhancing drug, and you can see they're not even the same guys. Mm. So when they're on it and when they're off their cycle, the difference is incredible. But you know what? The reason why I never said anything is I believe I don't want to go after one individual because I want to go after the system. If you go after one individual, another one or 10 more will come. If you change the system, that's a solution. And I don't judge people the reason why they do it. The problem is sometimes some people, it can make the difference for them to have millions of dollars or nothing.
Yeah.
It could make a difference between being UFC and not being in UFC. So everybody have their reason, but if you sign an agreement saying that you will fight fair and clean, it's cheating. It's against the code of honor of martial art.
Michael Bisping said a very similar thing in a recent interview that we did, and that kind of brings me in nicely to the fight that you guys had, because over a 4-year period, you're refreshed, probably learning even more than the previous years when you're at your height of your career and it's fast. You've got time to develop the skills. And now we come back and fight at a different weight category. Was that the appeal to you? Was the appeal to become a multi-weight world champion just coming back because you love the sport?
I had many criticizes during my career. The two most criticizes that came back most of the time is that I never fought in a heavier weight class.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was not enough finish. It's hard to finish a guy who doesn't fight to win anymore. He fight to not lose. So
yeah,
what happened during my fight that I felt is when you're a champion, everybody's studying your game to become the perfect nemesis to you. So when psychologically during a fight, they know they can't beat you because they're broken mentally. They will still fight, but they might not fight with the same intention of not necessarily putting all on the line. They might fight with the intention of kind of surviving, so to speak, or waiting for an opportunity that will never come, instead of engaging more and trying to create that opportunity. And it's very hard to fight a guy who fight like to finish a guy who fight like this. And you see it in a lot of sport, a lot of champions. In the beginning of their reign, they have a lot of finishes.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, people start to adapt and evolve to become their nemesis, and they change their mind when they fight during the fight. So I felt that's what happened. So I had two major criticisms when I came back. I never fought up a weight class, and I didn't have a lot of finishes. And also people were saying that, there's not enough drama. He's too much of a technician. And I knew Michael Bisping, when I came back to fight at 170, but my trainer, John Denara, says, George, why don't we come back and address these three things? And I was like, yeah, why not? Good idea. And Michael Bisping, bam, knocked out Luke Rockhold. And Michael Bisping is a big trash talker. I was like, he's a big guy. He's an incredible fighter. He's very charismatic. He's a trash talker. So he would bring the element of drama. And he's a 185er. So, and
former 205, isn't he? He's a big boy.
Yeah. And I train in a different way for that fight. I prepare myself to fight, but to be more opportunist, because I wanted to finish that fight. You never know if you will achieve it, but that was the goal, So I changed the way I was preparing myself to address these three things, and it happened the best. It happened the way I wish.
You obviously knew as well that Bisping's the type of guy that would come forward and maybe provide that opportunity for that finish. He would give you a proper fight.
He did at first, but then he changed his
in the second round,
change during the fight, and that's the quality of a good fighter. He changed, and he took me completely off guard. So I had to come back and change my style again to win. But it was a tough fight. I mean, I got caught. It was it was a very tough fight. He cut me with a very good right hand as well, who stunned me. I put a poker face, but he stunned me in that fight. And it was a great memory. Something that we'll remember for the rest of my life.
Talk to me about making 185, because I've seen you at boxing events recently, and I've stood next to you and I've thought, how did he get up to 185? You must have been eating crazy in order to get yourself to that, because as I've just said, Michael used to be a light heavyweight. He's a big guy. You are a career welterweight. I would guess, George, because of the incredible shape that you keep, you could probably make 155. So talk to me about getting up there. I'm led to believe that you actually made yourself poorly in order to get yourself to that situation.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I thought that if I fight someone bigger, in order to perform better, I needed to get bigger myself. What I've learned with the Michael Bisping fight is that statement is not true. I try to eat, to follow a diet to gain weight. But when you gain weight like this, what you do is you damage your digestive system because you load too much, and also the extra weight that you will put on very often, in my case, was extra, mostly water retention, because you eat so much that most of the food will not, be yours. It will be like a bag that you carry on your shoulder. So for me, trying to put on weight was more damaging than beneficial. And if I would have to fight ever again at 185, or go back in time, I would have told myself to not do it. Just stay natural the way you are.
Because you got colitis off the back of that, didn't you? And
yeah.
How are you now? Is there any long-term damage, or are you okay?
Normally it's long-term damage, but I'm 100% right now. All my symptoms are gone, and I made a lot of research when I had colitis. I didn't know what it was at first. I thought it was bad. I had a lot of blood, and I thought it was cancer. I was freaking out. It was a lot of pain, but after I investigate on that, I found out ways to make me much better, and right now I have zero symptoms, which most of the time it's almost impossible. So I start to intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting. I eat a lot of fermented food for my gut microbiome, and the stress too, I think it has an effect on that. That's what the doctor would say, but I believe they say that sometimes because they don't really know the cause of what it is. So my life is not as stressful right now, and I eat gut microbiome plus the intermittent fasting. I might go have another test recently to see if I still have colitis. I'm sure I still have, but because you're stuck. Once you have it, you're stuck for life. But very, very strange. I don't feel any symptoms anymore. I'm medication free. I don't need anything.
Well, I've asked about your health because I want to know if we're ever going to see Georges St-Pierre back in the octagon. you knew it was coming, George. Come on, man. You knew that I was going to ask that question.
The chances are incredibly low.
Even with so many fighters, and one of which is currently undefeated lightweight champion, mentioning your name, there's a lot of people mentioning your name. They want to fight you. Does that not tempt you?
It's tempting, and I still train hard. Now it's COVID, so of course it's different. I cannot train because it's illegal to train combat sport here. But before COVID, I always train hard. I still get it. I feel I'm at my best. But the fighter is always the last one to find out when your time is up. So, and I don't know. I mean, it takes three parties to make a fight. It takes one opponent, another opponent, and it takes the organization as well. And I don't know if the organization would want that. So I run away with the welterweight. I run away with the middleweight. And they surely don't want me to run with the lightweight. And I don't think I can. I'm 39 years old. I don't think I could go 155 without my performance being compromised. So that's the thing.
What do you make of Khabib? Because that's who we're talking about. He's the guy that has said that he will fight Justin Gaethje, and he recently put out that Instagram post where GSP in April. All right, and I know you saw it. What do you make of him?
Khabib, I believe, is the best fighter right now on the face of the earth, on the face of the planet. He's the best right now.
Does that not look at you? That tempts you. I can see in your eyes.
this statement.
I can see your eyes at that temperature. Lightweight, 155, the best fighter on the planet. It's there for you. Look at the smile. You're ready, George.
Khabib is fighting at 155, but I believe he's heavier than me. He walks around at heavier weight.
Yeah, right.
He's younger than me, so he can fluctuate his weight better. I never been a fan of cutting weight, so I never did it. I always stay pretty much I lose weight, but I don't lose too much weight to compare to most of the guys. I always thought about long terms, and I'm afraid of the long terms consequence. And physically, I'm always very fit. I don't have a lot of water retention and fat when I'm at my natural walking around weight. And so it's different for everybody. But I think Khabib walks around at a heavier weight than me. He's like over 185 most of the time. When he's off season, he's close to 200. And I've never been 200 pounds in my life.
So if we're not going to see you in the octagon again, what's next for you, man? Because you've completed the fight game. What else would you like to do with your life?
Oh, I have a lot of projects, guys. I'm working with Love Hemp in UK that use the CBD to promote health and well-being. I'm working also with a platform, TV.fit. I have a program there that is called Strike. I teach people how to fight and learn how to about fitness and stay in shape. I have a project also in acting. I have something very big coming up. Contractually, I'm not allowed to talk about it, so I can't tell you when, where, and what it's about.
Is it Batman? Are you Batman? Are you going to be Batman? Is that what it is, George?
It's a very good project for me, and I put a lot of time and effort in it. And there's also I'm very involved into fitness. There's a design program for a company called Aqualogic. They use the drag and the resistance of the water to help stay fit, especially during the confinement. It's very good. If you have a pool, access to water, you can use that to train, and it doesn't load the joint. It works on the muscle fiber very well.
Well, I personally am loving your videos that you're posting on social media, on Instagram, those little life lessons, the things that you've learned in your life that you're passing on, that wisdom to your fans. I'm sure a lot of people are getting a lot of value out of that. So thank you so much for sharing those experiences. And thank you so much for your time today, man, to sit down and talk through the best career that the UFC has ever seen. And who knows? Listen, I'm not signing it off. You might sign it off. I'm not signing it off. There might be one more. Georges St-Pierre, thank you so much.
We'll see. Thank you.